Hello and welcome to Odds on Champions League match day 2, games on Wednesday. We are here to analyze with you all these games with Dani, with Alvaro. Hello, looking forward to seeing more games in the Champions League with the Group F, of course, the Group of Death. So remember, guys, as always, leave your comments, press the like, subscribe, and now let's go on with the show. And also remember that we have a special partnership with 1xBet. So if you are looking for a bookmaker to register, we have a welcome offer up to 130% thanks to Oddspedia. Just type our Oddspedia promo code and you have the link in the description. So this video is to analyze the games we have on Wednesday. First stop is Group E in Madrid. We have Atlético de Madrid, Feyenoord. Alvaro, great comeback from Atlético de Madrid in La Liga against Cádiz. They have a lot of problems in the offensive part. That's why Correa played, even if he was half injured. Since they play in Rome, they've won all the games, including beating the neighbors, Real Madrid. So we can say they are in good form. But Feyenoord could be an uncomfortable rival, Alvaro, or do you trust this Atlético de Madrid at home?
The answer is yes for both questions. I think that Feyenoord can be uncomfortable to play against, and at the same time, I trust Atletico. I think that they are in a good moment. This is a must-win for Atletico, by the way, because we cannot forget that they have struggled in recent years to go through the group stage, and right now they've got a point. Feyenoord has 3, and I think that Atletico has to win it. Otherwise, the group is gonna become pretty complicated for them because Lazio is still there. Maybe Celtic can be a little bit of an opponent. I don't think so, but still, this is a must-win for Atletico. I repeat again, the other day they won their game on Sunday, just coming back with Correa being sensational, one of the best players in La Liga, in between the lines. And even though he's not a very good scorer, because since he's been in La Liga since 2015, and he has played many seasons there, and still hasn't reached the 100-goal landmark or anything like this for Atletico, but still he provides a lot and he moves very well. He has a good understanding with Antoine Griezmann. I don't know who's going to play up front, really, but Atletico, one thing that I like about them is that they have recovered a little bit the midfield that made them champions in 2021 with Saul, who's playing good football. I didn't see that coming. Marcos Llorente, who's playing very well, and most probably Koke, to the point that Rodrigo de Paul, for example, yesterday was on the bench. And the only thing that I don't like is Axel Witsel being a centre-back, because I think that this man is not ready for this challenge anymore. He was never probably ready for this, but in that department, Atletico may suffer a little bit, and Azpilicueta is not enjoying Spanish football so far. I think that he's suffering a little bit too, but as I said, I think that Atletico has to be the favorite for this game because they are playing at home and because they are playing in a good moment. They are enjoying a good moment, Atletico to win 171, and I am totally aware that Feyenoord, number one, they are in a good moment. They beat Go Ahead Eagles this weekend, 3-1. They are 4th in the Eredivisie just because they suffer 2 draws in August, but otherwise they will be punching up there. They beat Ajax the other day 4-0, and the only problem for them is that Santiago Jimenez, a man who has scored already 10 goals this season, 15 last season, by the way, so his improvement is there. This season is even better than last, but he cannot play because he's still suspended. So, Atletico to win, as I said before, 171, plain and simple.
Six consecutive victories, Dani, for Feyenoord. Their record in the Champions League, we said in the opening game against Celtic, is very poor recently, but they won that game. They were a bit lucky. Celtic had their chances.
Yeah, they had, but in the second half, Feyenoord imposed themselves. They also missed a penalty. Celtic kind of imploded. And yeah, the win was never going to escape the Dutch side. Yeah, so the record in Champions League is poor. They only won 2 of the last 24 Champions League games. They won back-to-back Champions League games now. They are top goal scorer in the Eredivisie at 26 goals scored so far. And, they are building some good experience in Europe under Arne Slot. 2 years ago, finalist of that Conference League final. They lost against Roma. Jimenez suspended, of course. Look out for Paixão, it's a good player, the Brazilian. And when it comes to Atletico Madrid, they've done the job on Real Madrid. 3 goals, 3 headers, a scrappy game. Cholismo never dies sometimes. But, against Lazio, they should have won that game. And they got unstuck by Lazio and their will never to give up. But I think you could have seen the difference between the two teams. No wins for Atletico in the last 6 Champions League games. Only 1 win in the last 11 Champions League games at home. As Alvaro said rightly, this is must win for a team the last season finished bottom of the group. Are they going to win this one? Possibly, but I don't think they're going to outscore Feyenoord. I'm going to go for Feyenoord Asian handicap +1, 180, which means if Feyenoord draws or win, you win. If they lose by only 1 goal margin, you get your money back.
Even Atletico players said after the victory against Cádiz that this is a match ball, so there is a bit of pressure under the shoulders of the footballers. And perhaps Feyenoord can disappoint either Atletico or Lazio, the 2 favorites to qualify. Lazio traveling to Scotland, Celtic, Lazio, and in a bad moment, yes. Lazio, Dani, another defeat in Serie A. This plane has never taken off this season because they beat Torino at home. They lost to Milan. Still no back-to-back victories. You mentioned that they deserved to lose in the opening game against Atletico. Only the goalkeeper saved them. And what to say about Celtic? Dani, is always a special atmosphere playing here in Celtic Park. Do you trust Lazio?
Not really, because they don't give him very good signs. 4 defeats already in the league. Only 1 clean sheet kept in 8 games. Last season, they kept 21 in Serie A. It cannot just be down to the fact they don't have Milinkovic-Savic anymore, which was so important physically. Something is not right with Lazio. This is the worst start of the season since 1995 in Serie A. Against Milan, a good first half, good half hour, but then they struggled to keep going. As soon as Milan took the lead, they basically unplugged and didn't create anything. And that's really worrying for Lazio. They struggled to create clear-cut chances consistently. They got a good team spirit, like in the game against Atletico, in the game against Torino. They do have resources there, but they are very, very inconsistent. And Maurizio Sarri has come up with another of his endless excuses. Now he's very upset against UEFA, Italian FA for the fixture congestions. Maybe because Lazio's had a very tough calendar in Italy. They played away Milan, Napoli, Juventus, but Maurizio, that's football, mate. I mean, it is what it is. And he also said, we are not a top team. Champions League is a luxury for us. And it's really almost seems like he's downsizing his team. A team that last season finished second, played well, and in the first season with Sarri, they should improve, but they aren't. Celtic, on the other hand, up and down. They won in stoppage time against Motherwell. They are depleted. I think the big issue for Celtic is they got a lot of injuries. Cameron Carton-Vickers won't be available. They got 2 defenders sent off against Feyenoord, Lagerbeek and Holm. 4 wins in the last 5, but yes, as I mentioned, in the second half against Feyenoord, they imploded. Their Champions League record for Celtic, it's appalling. No wins since 2017. Only won 1 of the last 22. And the question is, can they translate the domestic dominance into European glory, at least trying to qualify for the Europa League? Is going to be really, really difficult. But considering the Lazio is in a poor form, maybe Celtic could have a chance. I'm going to go for a bet builder here. 1x and over 1.5 goals, considering the poor defensive record, especially on the visitors. Put them together, 2-11.
Well, following this poor record in Europe for Celtic, Alvaro, Lazio to win is 2.45. Yeah. It's really good.
It's not bad. I mean, look, how much can we take from local leagues into the Champions League? That's question number 1. And question number 2, especially in an encounter between a team from a strong league like Lazio and a team from a lesser league, how much can we take from the local leagues? Because, for example, Celtic had a great manager for the last couple of years, 21-22 season and 22-23 season. Ants Postecoglou was there, and he's doing a great job at Tottenham as well. Well, Postecoglou, I think he won 35 league games, and he drew 5 at home. They didn't lose. Celtic didn't lose in 2 seasons with Postecoglou as a manager at home a league game. They didn't. But then you look at their numbers in Europe during the Postecoglou time, and they are as follows. In the Champions League last year, they got only 2 points. So no wins at home. No wins at home. And they were very strong at home domestically. And then in the 21-22 season, they didn't negotiate the Champions League playoff with Postecoglou. Then in the Europa League, they finished 3rd. Then they go to the playoff of the Conference League in February, and they lose to a side that you remember very well, Bodo Glimt. So again, my question is, how much can we take from these local leagues when especially you play against a team from the Serie A, a team from La Liga, a team from the Bundesliga, and the Premier League? That is my question here.
Alvaro, just to quickly, Rangers, who play in the same league as Celtic, they got better results in Europe recently.
They did.
And the Ibrox is a factor, at least in the Europa League.
In Europa League. But anyway, when was the last time we have seen a Scottish team in the Champions League last 16 round? I struggled to think about one of them. But anyway, who knows? Who knows? Maybe you're right, Daniele, because Celtic this weekend, they show resilience. They won in the 97th minute with a goal from, who was that? O'Reilly scored for them. Yeah. And Lazio, they are not going through a great moment neither. But, Lazio to win, obviously, the value is very good. It's not my favorite bet here. But both teams to score is certainly something that I will be very happy with, 167, or even over 2.5 goals, 180. But from all the games of this show, this is the most likely to be a pass for me, because I still don't have the answers to the questions I made at the beginning of my explanation. But maybe both teams to score 167 will be the best one.
Well, it's very important for Lazio to catch points after the draw against Atlético Madrid at home. They need to get the 3 points from Glasgow also to have options to qualify. Again, the odds are very good if you are backing Sarri's men. Let's go to the group of death, Group F, in the north of England. Newcastle PSG against the music of the Champions League to be tuned in St. James's Park. And when I was seeing the odds, I thought about Alvaro because I saw PSG to win 2.7. They are the underdogs the odds are basically the same for Newcastle to win or for PSG to win. It's true, Alvaro, that we saw PSG being unable to score a goal against Clermont away, having some difficulties in League One, but they negotiated quite well the game against Dortmund, as you said, a couple of weeks ago. And this Newcastle is getting stronger and stronger, keeping clean sheets. But still, I love these odds for PSG, to be honest.
They are good for PSG, if you're a PSG believer. In the last show, what happened is that there was a combination of factors. Number one, that PSG was playing at home, and number two, that they were playing against Dortmund. So for me, it was a little bit of a no-brainer. I think that Dortmund, for a while now, they haven't been able to translate the expectations that I don't know where they are coming from, by the way, into success in Europe. But for this game, look, the odds for PSG are good, obviously. In fact, I'm going to back PSG somehow differently. For example, PSG to score over 1.5 goals is something that I like here. That pays 2.1. Or Mbappé to score is probably my favorite thing. Mbappé to score 2.2, yes. PSG was scoreless in the weekend, but at the same time, Kylian Mbappé, even in the first game against Dortmund, he already recorded the most dribbles for a player in the Champions League Matchday 1. He is scoring goals in Ligue 1, and he's the main danger of PSG. So Mbappé to score 2.2, I like it, because sometimes you look at some other good scorers and the odds for them to score, like Harry Kane this weekend, obviously, or this midweek against Copenhagen, going to be 150. Haaland is always around 173, 170 in difficult games. Mbappé to score 2.2 is pretty decent. And both teams to score is something I like here. I know that the odds are not fantastic, but 153 is pretty good, even though I am aware that Newcastle has recorded 5 clean sheets in the last 5 games, which is really good. At Milan, they didn't deserve a clean sheet. They didn't.
No.
They didn't. And then they beat Manchester City last week in midweek, 1-0. A very depleted Manchester City, I have to say, by the way. But, one thing that we can see in PSG, by the way, is already the hand of Luis Enrique, the touch of Luis Enrique. PSG has a 71% possession in the league already. It's by far the team with more possession in Ligue 1. And in the Champions League first game, they had a lot of possession too. Sometimes that possession with Luis Enrique can be very sterile, I know. But here, I think that PSG probably will race to the occasion. So I'm going to go from, apart from the individual market of Mbappé, as I said before, PSG to score over 1.5 goals, 2.1.
It was a miracle, Dani, that Milan didn't score in that first game against Newcastle in the Champions League.
And I think we saw the difference when it comes to pedigree, when it comes to history. It was the 4th team of Serie A against the 4th team of England, and Milan were on top. It just it's not just about the league you play in; it's also about the experience of your club and your and your squad members. Milan were better, should have won. Maybe Newcastle were a little bit emotional, had the butterflies in the stomach. First game in the Champions League after 20 years or so. Now the season is back on track for Newcastle, but you have to remember the beginning, the calendar was very tough. They played Liverpool, they played Manchester City, they played Aston Villa. Now obviously they're getting better results because they're playing against weaker opposition. This is a good test. But if you look at the overall numbers of Newcastle United, they are in the top 7, top 6 of Premier League for shots, successful passes, possession. Of course, what is important for Newcastle United is the physical condition. Any Eddie Howe's team that is going to be successful need to be at the very top physically because it demands a lot of runs, a lot of pressing. Against Milan, they were quite timid. They didn't really push the line very high and should have lost, this if it wasn't for Pope, Trippier, and Botman. Actually, by the way, Botman is an injury out for this one, so the best defender. It's going to be tricky if he doesn't play. They need to be clinical as well. Against Burnley, they had 8 shots on target, only scored 2. Top teams don't leave you so much space. When it comes to PSG, they are a team in transition, and I think you will see a lot of different results at the moment. It was a great display against Olympique Marseille. You won 3-1. They won against Lens a few weeks ago, 3-1, and then 0-0 against Clermont Foot, although the keeper of Clermont Foot made 10 saves. So, at the end, he also is one of those days, I think. Obviously, 12 points in the league. Ligue 1 is the worst ever start since the Qatari-led takeover in 2011. But, they obviously got a very good record in Champions League, although they lost 5 of the last 7 against English sides. I think it's going to be a game for goals. I like the both to score. The PSG backline doesn't convince me too much, but I'm going to go both to score and over 2.5 goals, 252.
You both like the both teams to score, even if Newcastle, they have been keeping 5 consecutive clean sheets in all competitions, actually. Well, big game, this one, Newcastle PSG. In the other game in this group, Dortmund. Milan, I don't fall in love with this Milan, Dani, but they are getting the results, only the defeat
so
in the
you're not like Arrigo Sacchi or La Gazzetta every other day writes that this is like this Milan of his old days.
No, it's not. It's not the Capello Milan.
That's
not
what he
the
says.
one that used
Milan,
to play with Pro Evolution Soccer, with Maldini, with Nesta, with Cafu. Far away from that Milan, but they are getting the results. Leao is still the best, and Dortmund is true what Alvaro was saying, that they is a team that we shouldn't be careful when we trust them, and we didn't do it in our Bundesliga video, I believe, against Hoffenheim, but they get the results. It's very inconsistent, this Dortmund, and also the odds for both outcomes are very, very high, Dani.
The big gamble of Milan this season is to improve the depth of the squad by selling Tonali and buying 6 players. This is all, the Milan season is all about that. Last season, they were not competitive in the league because they didn't have a deep squad, and every time Pioli made changes, they lost points. Now they seem to have more options, but we need to see whether this continues. Let's not forget, last year Milan finished 5th in Serie A if it wasn't for Juventus being docked 10 points. Now they won 6 out of 8 games. They were defeated heavily in the derby, but since then they drew 1 and won 3. And the good news is that since Tomori got back from his suspension, they only conceded 1 goal in the last 4 games. And it is true that the contribution from the so-called fringe players, from Okafor to Adli to Musa, is being good so far. We still perhaps need to see the best from Chukwueze and a little bit more from the likes of Pobega, who's not a new signing, etc. But the signs are there. But of course, the best player for Milan is still Rafael Leao, 2 assists on Saturday, score 4 already. The contribution from Pulisic has been good. So it's all about that. How many rotation can Pioli can make? And he's going to be forced to make some changes this game, because he's going to be without Robert Loftus-Cheek, so it's Pobega and Musa in midfield. Pobega had a good game against Newcastle, but also Milan squandered so many chances against Newcastle, and I'm wondering whether they're going to live to regret that. In such a tight group, you need to put games away. Of course, the sensation from Milan are good, but they need to keep going. Let's not forget they have not scored in the last 3 Champions League matches. This is the first time they meet, by the way, in 20 years, these 2 teams. Borussia won at the weekend, 3-1 against Hoffenheim, a goal for Füllkrug. They played with 10 the last 20 minutes, resisted the charges from Hoffenheim. I think against PSG, they were a little bit too timid because the offensive changes came a little bit too late. Then in the second half, they hit the post. Only kept 1 clean sheet in the last 6, by the way. Dortmund, they drew a 1 at home against Heidenheim, where they were 2-0 up. I don't think Milan is going to lose this one. Yes, the yellow wall. Yes, the atmosphere. Milan has got a pedigree, I think, to come unbeaten. Asian handicap, plus 0.25, 183. Let's explain it for the viewers. It means if Milan wins, you win. If they draw, you win half a stake. If they lose, of course, you lose your stake.
I have to say, Alvaro, that I have more trust in PSG playing away against Newcastle than in Milan against the yellow wall and everything that Dani was saying. Even
the yellow wall, the yellow wall has
Milan
never scored a goal.
Yeah,
the yellow wall has
never
scored a goal.
I don't know. It's a lot of doubts.
You know, one of the odds I picked is that one that Daniele flagged. Asian handicap plus 0.25 for Milan, 182. The thing is that, look, for this game, it's very important to remark that maybe Milan has to defend more than Pioli would want, even though I think that Pioli is sometimes happy to defend. But this time, I mean, Daniele can expand on this, but Krunic, Benacer, and Loftus-Cheek are out.
Yes.
And this is a massive thing for Milan. They are waiting for Benacer. They've been waiting for him for a while. And this guy
he's out for months.
Yeah, exactly. But he's supposed to be the axis soon of the team, but I don't know when is that going to happen. But in the absence of Benacer, Loftus-Cheek, Krunic, you know, they are there and they are doing as best as they can. But this time they are not there. So this is going to affect probably Pioli's game plan. I'm pretty sure about that. I think Milan is going to be a bit more defensive even than they can be. And just for the reason, because their midfield has imploded. It's not there anymore. I don't know who is going to play in midfield this day against Dortmund. And, you know, Milan, let's not forget that in the Champions League, away from home, they've been pretty decent with the tight margins. Because, for example, last season, they only got 1 win away in the Champions League, yes, but they reached the semifinals thanks to 3 draws. 3 draws, because sometimes drawing away from home is not so bad. So that's why I like the Asian handicap plus 0.25. And also, maybe this game, even though this market is not for me, but could point in the direction of under 2.5 goals. Why do I say this? Because from all the sides in the Bundesliga that are in Champions League positions, Dortmund is clearly the lowest scoring side. They score less than Bayer Leverkusen, Leipzig, Bayern, of course. Same thing applies to Milan. They are second in the Serie A, but if you check their goal difference, they've got a plus 7. Inter, who is topping the table with as many points, they've got a plus 16. This defines Milan pretty well as well. I think that they are also like scoring less and suffering more for what they get. the points they get. So maybe the under can be a possibility here, under 2.5. But at the same time, I always refrain myself from choosing the under in the Champions League because the quality of the strikers is so high that even if there are less chances than in a normal game, the ability to score them is really high throughout the competition. So as I said before, AC handicap plus 0.25 for AC Milan, 182, or, not being so generous, a double chance for Milan, 157.
Well, a great game we have in Germany. This Borussia Dortmund Milan in Group F. We are still in Germany to analyze one of the best games actually that we have on Wednesday. Leipzig, Man City, Group G, especially because it's very odd. I don't know if it had happened before in Guardiola's era, in back-to-back defeats from Man City against Wolves, against Newcastle, and this RB Leipzig is really informed. They showed against Bayern Munich how they can put in trouble a very good team like Bayern Munich's Tuchel. So perhaps we can see a disappointment here. Alvaro, another one for Guardiola?
Look, if you're going to back Leipzig, there is a very good value here, apart from Leipzig winning, of course, which I still think that is unlikely just because Manchester City in the last year they learned how to defend difficult games as well. And even last season, for example, they got a 0-0 here, as far as I can remember. Yeah. And then, in the second leg at home, Erling Haaland scored 5 and they killed Leipzig. But, Leipzig to be the first team to score, something that is obviously highly speculative, but also gives you a high value. 275. This could be something that may happen here. But a quick word on Manchester City. I mean, when you lose Gundogan because he goes to Barcelona, Kevin De Bruyne, Bernardo, and Rodri are out for various reasons, which is what has happened in the Premier League, then your team is not the same team. And for this game, Bernardo and Kevin De Bruyne are still not there, and Gundogan is still at Barcelona. Rodri, luckily for Manchester City, can play this game because his suspension doesn't count in the Champions League. But I think that Manchester City has done this season something which is quite a transformation. They have bought what is called the ball carriers, players who can carry the ball. And I was wondering, why is Guardiola doing this? Well, because he wants people who can actually take on somebody and break a line like this, not via passing, as they did in 2018, for example, with David Silva, Gundogan, Bernardo Silva, and all the technical footballers they have there. He wants the players to take that responsibility and do it. And in the Champions League, in the first week, we saw that against the Red Star, Manchester City had 2 of the players who had taken on more times. One was Jeremy Doku, the French guy, the Belgian guy, 6 dribbles, and then the other one, Mateus Nunes, a midfielder. But the question is, for me, are these players so good to take the win of Manchester City as given? I don't think so. I don't think so yet. I think Manchester City will not be the same team until they recover Bernardo Silva and Kevin De Bruyne. I think that they will not struggle, obviously, but maybe they have to work a little bit harder to win the games. But still, all that said, I think that I would go for Erling Haaland to score, maybe 173. I think the value order is pretty decent. And overall, even though I said I flagged that Leipzig scoring first has a great value, I still believe that Manchester City, if they win, you get 173 and that will be good value. But I'm not going to keep this game for my ACCA personally. I think that I want to wait and see because it's not a given to win a game when you have in the pitch players who are still adapting.
And Leipzig, they are great this season, way better than in the previous seasons. Dani, Openda is working really well. Real Madrid lost last season, for instance, in this stadium. And as Alvaro said, even Man City couldn't win here.
Since Marco Rose took charge of Leipzig last year around October, they will be top of Bundesliga. 2-2 against Bayern, unbeaten in 4 games against Bayern, missed a lot of chances to make it 3-0. They were without Dani Olmo, by the way. They attack with a lot of confidence, and the number in the attacks are really good. 25 goals scored in 9 games, if we include the cup competitions, of course. And, in Bundesliga, they played Bayern Leverkusen, Union Berlin. So, their achievements are really, really remarkable. Only lost 1 of the last 7 Champions League games, Leipzig. Of course, the 7-0 defeat against Manchester City. But last year, let's not forget, 1-1 in Leipzig. Manchester City dominated the first half, but then in the second half, Leipzig came and managed to draw. And the previous season, they actually beat them 2-1. It was the last game of the group stages. Now, for Manchester City, of course, missing your best player, Rodri, is going to be difficult. They'll have him back for this one, but not for the game at Arsenal, for example, that they play on Saturday. Now, Manchester City in the Premier League have played 15 games without Rodri, lost 5. So this is the importance of the Spaniard. They were also without Stones at the weekend. The game against Wolves, a little bit unlucky. Of course, they had a lot of chances, similar to the defeat to Nottingham Forest last season, if you remember, when they had a lot of chances and then they lost 1-0. But, you know, it shows the deficiencies of this Manchester City side, especially when it gets attacked with pace. But the things that concern me a little bit about City is the away form in the Champions League. Often they seem ponderous. Last year, they managed 5 draws away in the Champions League. They also drew away the Super Cup this season against Sevilla. So it's different when they play at home at the Etihad and away. Their record in the group stage of the Champions League is great. They only lost 2 of the last 30, and against Red Star, they bombarded them. But it's not the same team when they play home and away.
Yeah. So, Daniele, but is that not the reason why they won the Champions League? Because they went at the Bernabeu and they drew. And they,
of course.
You know, I mean, because they changed their approach. And now, away from home, they are more cautious. And then at home, they try to destroy you. And normally they do.
But they also drew games against Leipzig, against Copenhagen, against teams that are not the same caliber as Real Madrid. So I say when you look, it's mostly from a betting perspective. If you look for a Manchester City to go score 2 or 3 goals away from home in the Champions League, often doesn't happen. But yeah, the defensive solidity is a plus, especially when you play in a semi-final or a quarterfinals. But in the group stages, they were not at that level. For this reason, I'm going to go for a Leipzig Asian handicap plus 0.75, 203, which means if they draw or they win, you win. If they lose by only 1 goal, you lose alpha stake.
Well, Leipzig to win is 5.0. We were commenting in our Premier League video that many times, especially this season, but also last season, it looks like Man City, they are in second gear, just waiting for the big challenges. Perhaps the big challenge is against Arsenal at the weekend. It's not that important, this game.
Yes, and no, because I think that I want to remark this again. The transformation of Manchester City is quite big right now because they have signed ball carriers at the expense of the team's quality. Because 4 or 5 seasons ago, they had some of the best, finest midfielders in the world. And now, not until they recover them, they will have to rely on players who carry the ball. But honestly, Mateus Nunes and Mateo Kovacic, and all due respect to Kovacic, but for me, he's the lesser from Rakitic and Modric. Will they start in any top side right now? Top side? I really wonder that, really. And yet, Manchester City, they are very solid because they are playing mostly with 4 centre-backs. Against Nottingham Forest, they lost a player, Rodri, and Guardiola ended up with Calvin Phillips, 4 centre-backs, and Kyle Walker, so 6 stoppers in the game. Guardiola's approach has changed a lot. This is probably circumstantial due to the injuries, but it's not a given to win a game when you start with Mateus Nunes, Doku, and some other players who are still, again, adapting to the team.
Yep.
Well, let's see if Man City, they struggle here. Leipzig is really tough opposition. Luckily, I think for both teams, this game is almost meaningless apart from the first spot because they should qualify comfortably. The other game in this group is Red Star Young Boys. All due respect, but this looks like a Europa League game more than a Champions League one. Red Star third in the Serbian league, 3 defeats in the last 5. Dani, Young Boys also, they look like not having a chance against Leipzig. They were a bit lucky to get the equalizer, but I think non-Red Star nor Young Boys have a chance to qualify in this group.
It's very difficult. They are top on the league, Young Boys in Switzerland, but the numbers are very average. This, by the way, is the first Champions League game between a Serbian and a Swiss side. You know, a bit of trivia for you. And by the way, the 11th game in the Champions League for Red Star Belgrade, Champions League European Cup, of course. Red Star, you know, congratulations to them because they were really set up well against Manchester City, although they conceded 28 shots on target, which is a record for the Champions League. Can they now play on the front foot? They won 1-0 at the weekend. The manager, Barak Bakar from Israel, last year did really well with Maccabi Haifa. Aside, they played attacking football, sometimes were a little bit reckless, scored 7 in a very difficult group with PSG, Juventus, Benfica, recorded the 6-1 and 7-2 defeats, but beat Juventus conceding 21 goals, but qualifying for the Europa League. Young Boys, on the other hand, Eton scored at the weekend, 23 goals last season, but they never won away in the Champions League in 6 games and never took the lead in an away Champions League games. I think this is going to be probably a Serbian win. I'm going to go for 1x and under 3.5 goals combined, 202.
Alvaro, how do you see this less sexy game in the Champions League?
Yeah, similar to Daniele, really. Red Star haven't lost a competitive game at home in 2023, but it's true that if you go to 2022, you find their a defeat in European football. That was in autumn last year, but yeah, in 2023 they have been really good at home, and that's something that we cannot overlook. And then Young Boys, look, you struggle to find many wins of them in the Champions League away from home. They got one against Dinamo Zagreb in 2018. They got another one in 2021 against Ferencváros, but in the last 4 Champions League games away, they have lost or draw. And for example, they drew as well against Maccabi Haifa in the playoff. So, you know, I think that I'm going to go for a home win here. Plain and simple, Red Star to win, 2-15.
Well, let's jump into the last group here. We have the early kickoff in Anver's Shakhtar Donetsk. Also, Antwerp, they didn't look like a Champions League team, Alvaro, against Barcelona. They were appalling. They were thrashed easily by Barça. They are 5th in the Belgian league. Shakhtar also lost against Porto, another 2 teams that is going to be very difficult for them to qualify for the next round.
Yeah, especially Shakhtar Donetsk, they really have to limit and lessen the individual mistakes because, for example, in the game against Porto, there was a terrible one in the second goal of Galeno, really, with the pass to the centre-backs that didn't find nobody, and then Galeno scored a very easy goal. The individual mistakes cannot happen this time for Shakhtar, and they also conceded 3 goals in half an hour, basically. So in the Champions League, if you are that poor defensively, you end up paying. Of course, against Antwerp, you don't pay that much. The cost is not that high if you make mistakes, but still. Number one, I think that Antwerp against Barcelona, they were always going to lose, and they did lose 5-0. I think that they were sometimes daring. They tried to score. They had a couple of chances, we have to say. But generally speaking, Barcelona never suffered in that game. And Toby Alderweireld was trying to look at the positives and saying, look, in these games, you can take the best possible conclusion is that we learned, you know, but that was clearly an understatement. I know that Antwerp haven't had defeats at home this season, and they haven't conceded a goal at home in the last 5 home games, which is quite something coming into this game. And when it comes to Shakhtar, there is no differentiation for me between the home and away form because it's totally irrelevant right now. They are playing always away. This is the way I see it. So maybe an Asian handicap plus 0.75 for Shakhtar Donetsk. I don't know. That could be a good one, 185. And the great value, of course, is on Shakhtar winning, 450. None of the sides give me any guarantee of anything, but the big money is there. But, you know, I prefer to go a little bit carefully here. Asian handicap plus 0.75 for Shakhtar, 185.
Well, for sure, the value is not in Antwerp to win. Then it's only 1.8, a team with no pedigree in this competition.
Yeah.
I think the book is got it wrong here. I think they are underestimating Shakhtar massively against a team that is... Yeah, always, because probably we don't know much about Ukrainian football. He has no under a radar for obvious reasons. But Antwerp are debutants in this season. Last 3 games, all 0-0. No goals in the last 5. They're currently 5th in the league, 5 points behind Union. They don't really instill me a lot of confidence, really. And Shakhtar, okay, they've lost the last 2 Champions League games. They are only 1 win in the last 14 Champions League group stages games. but it is a side that I think got more quality and more experience than Antwerp. They have to deal with a bit some injuries. There is no Matvienko, no Traoré, no Bondnar, but they were playing against a very good, experienced Porto side. And here, against Antwerp, I think they could get a result. I like the odds that Alvaro suggested, plus 0.75 for Shakhtar on the Asian handicap. When I checked, was 189. Now it's 185. So clearly, maybe some bettors understood the trick here. But yeah, I go with the Ukrainian side here.
Value on Shakhtar Donetsk in this game. And the last game we have to analyze is a good one, actually, for the first spot probably in this group. Porto, Barcelona. We saw at the weekend, Dani, Porto losing the Clásico in Portugal against Benfica, and Barcelona suffering in La Liga since David Antwerp. They got some victories at home against Sevilla, against Celta, but conceded goals, for instance, against Celta and against Mallorca. It's not that reliable as we thought, this Barcelona.
Porto down to 10 men, lost with Benfica. They were solid for most of the game. It was a very unspectacular game, but it was the Clásico in Portugal. And no, these kind of games drain a lot of energy from you. So you would expect Barcelona to be on top, perhaps at the beginning. They lost already twice to Benfica this season, also in the Super Cup. Otherwise, 6 wins, 1 draw, and they were very clinical against Shakhtar in the previous match day. Only 10 goals scored in the league. It is a team that lost a couple of key players in the summer, the likes of Galeno, for example. So they have to readjust a little bit. A curious fact is the first time Pepe will play Barcelona since he left Madrid in 2017. He's got a good record against Barcelona. They played 23 times. I wonder what the odds for Pepe to get booked on this one. And my pick, by the way, is both to score and over 2.5 goals, 302, which is very high. And I finish with a question for Alvaro. I mean, Alvaro, is the defense the issue for Barcelona? 8 goals conceded, but still they kept 5 clean sheets, so it's not too bad. Last season, maybe they were saved by some Ter Stegen heroics, but now is a little bit like, is he a concern? Is the back four of Barcelona as good as it should be? By the way, both to score and over 2.5 goals for me.
Alvaro?
I think Barcelona should be concerned about playing well. And if they play well, they defend well. And last season, defensive numbers, they were fictional. And I say that many times. Because they, by mid-May, they had conceded 14 goals. And they won the league, having conceded 14. And then in the last minutes of the game against Espanyol, the day they won the title, they conceded 2 or 3. I don't remember how many. And at the end of the season, they conceded up to 20. Up to 20. In the last 3 games, they conceded many because they were already the champions. But it didn't make any sense that by mid-May, Barcelona had conceded only 14. It looked like Atlético 13, 14. And it was nowhere near that defensive quality. But, you know, a couple of combinations. Number one, the heroics from Araujo, Ter Stegen, and Christensen, plus the drop of quality in La Liga forwards in general, made Barcelona look like a very good defensive side, but they weren't. And in the Champions League, you could tell, and in the Europa League, you could tell, because Bayern scored many against them, because Manchester United scored many against them, because when they played against Real Madrid managed to score 4 goals at the Camp Nou. So in the big nights, Barcelona were still conceding many. I think that this season, Barcelona's defense is not particularly better, but the squad is better. I will say that this is the important thing. Joao Cancelo, Joao Felix, and many more who have arrived, Gundogan as well, they are providing quality. And if Barcelona plays better, obviously they will concede less. This is my whole theory. But, you know, let's see how they do at Porto. I think that Porto is one of the difficult grounds in Europe for sides that go there with doubts. And I think Barcelona has a few doubts in them right now. They beat Sevilla the other day. They deserve to beat Sevilla. But important players are out for Barcelona, the likes of Rafinha, who picked an injury, Frenkie de Jong and Pedri. So, you know, those are very sensitive things, absentees, because Barcelona relies on these players to create football. Let's see how it goes, really. Porto, look, number one, they've got the epicity, because I think that this season they have scored already 5 goals after the 90th minute, then they don't have so many scorers. In fact, Galeno is still in the team, but Daniele, by the way.
Sorry, it's Ottavio.
Ottavio. Yeah. Galeno and Taremi, between them both, they have scored only 5 goals. Only 5. At this stage of the season, it's very poor. So I think that Porto is struggling to score goals as well. And they got a few absentees here and there. I think Marcano, Veron, Evanilson, and even Pepe are still doubts for this game. Pepe, by the way, will play against Barcelona. Ramos played against Barcelona last Friday. The only thing we have to do now is give some performance-enhancing product to Fernando Hierro and Sanchez, and maybe in the next game they will play against Barcelona too. It's incredible that Barcelona is encountering Ramos and Pepe in 2023, but this is how it goes. Congratulations to these guys, Ramos and Pepe, for being so strong at this age. But yeah, maybe an Asian handicap of minus 0.25 for Barcelona is my favorite. I back them a little bit, but not a lot. So basically, if Barcelona wins, you win. And if they draw, you only suffer half a lose.
Real Madrid is not playing against Puyol or Piqué, no? For instance, against Napoli, Dani, as far as we know.
No.
They are not in Napoli yet. Well, let's see. This is a good game for topping this group. I guess both teams should qualify, but let's see who come first in this group. Let's finish the video. Alvaro, your safe bet?
My safe bet, it will be Asian handicap minus 0.25 for Atlético. That pays 145.
You believe they are gonna win, and Dani?
At the Westfalen, Milan is not going to lose. Borussia Dortmund, Milan X2, 166.
That's not very safe for me, in my opinion.
Well,
let's see. And your ACCA, Dani?
Royal Antwerp, Shakhtar Donetsk, under 3.5 goals. Leipzig, Manchester City, both to score. Porto, Barcelona, over 2.5 goals. And Red Star Belgrade, Young Boys, double chance, 1x. Total odds, 6.
High odds, Alvaro?
Atlético to win. Newcastle, Paris Saint-Germain, both teams to score. Asian handicap minus 0.25 for Barcelona. Altogether, lower, 434.
Thank you, Alvaro. Thanks, Dani. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Don't forget, press the like and subscribe. Bye-bye.
See you soon.
See you.